Good evening, and welcome to a celebration of sex, highs, and videotape. Let's start on a high, a tribute to an intricate piece of equipment that has made possible some of the most exhilarating, gravity-defying shots in movie history, the camera crane. Before the crane was invented, movement was pretty much limited to the dolly shot, which basically involved pushing a camera along on wheels. With the arrival of the crane, the camera spread its wings. So Moving Pictures gives you an uplifting guide to the crane shot, its origins, heyday, and fall from grace when a generation of directors came to scorn it. Now its infinite possibilities are once again being explored infinitely.
Down through the ages, all of the sages said don't spend your wages on
When you see the crane used to bring about a feeling of lifting the audience up above the action or coming down into it, and it really works, when it really starts getting your emotional juices going, then it's something else.
We want to see Debbie and Fester.
Miss Debbie! Welcome to my home.
The crane is a great tool because it allows a director to control where the audience should be looking and what they should be feeling.
The crane shot is not a natural point of human vision in most cases. I mean, the dolly shot we can all appreciate. We can walk forward into a scene. We can move around in a room, and that's, or an exterior, that's natural for us. But what happens when you are suddenly rising up in the air? I think sometimes it's just the neatest way to reveal a tremendous amount of information about the environment in a hurry.
All of a sudden, there's the West. There it is. And you're swept up in being right there in the West, and you have no question where you are. It's absolutely brilliant. That's the God shot, which you can go from ground level and sweep up into a shot that looks down upon humanity and your characters. And what you're doing is taking your audience and giving them a kind of omnipotent deity view. We're God looking down on our characters and evaluating what their actions. I had a shot in the opening of Halloween to have this big long dolly shot that is a point of view of somebody who goes through a house upstairs, commits a killing, comes downstairs, runs out. Michael? You crane back from this kid to show not only the kid, but his parents, but the whole neighborhood. And in that sense, it was saying, here's small town America in the middle of the night on a Halloween, and this horrible crime has been committed. And it was just a way of taking the audience back and framing the whole thing for them without words and saying, here you go.
The problem with crane shots can often be, if you just use it to boom straight up, since you're booming up through space, you don't have a sense of anything moving or traveling or perspective changing. So even when I do use cranes, I like to have either something in the foreground that's changing the foreground and giving me energy, or I like to use a crane in conjunction with a move. Where I'm most pleased with the work I've done on a crane is in Raising Arizona. One is a shot that starts very low and very wide. Think of it as one continuous move. It's actually 4 or 5 shots cut together, but the shot we used the crane for, which was going up a ladder and into a window, the reason that crane shot for me is very effective is we had something in the foreground, which was this ladder that we got to race up, and 2, because the move had great energy and perspective change. Anytime you move the camera, you control what the audience is feeling and seeing. Whether it's forward, sideways, up, down, you get to change an audience's perspective in the same shot, which is just a wonderful controlling thing to do.
Swing across, yeah? Okay. But keep it sort of busy. But can we swing? Can we be down around here so we can have people in foreground crossing and then we eventually see him?
First, the director and I talked about what the shot was going to be, and we know that he's going to come walk. The actor's going to come walking across the street. And he's going to end up in that door over there. So we set up the end position. We set up the front position. Then the trick is to put the crane in the right situation.
This is really probably the simpler of the crane shots, but it really is to give a long lens, combustion, compact feel to the shot, and it's quick.
You always ask the grip before you get onto the crane, before you get off the crane.
Let's see how it works.
Especially off, huh? Very dangerous, because it's counterweighted. And what happens is that all this mercury is pumped back there that counterweights us. And if we step off, it's just like a catapult. You can just go like this.
Film is all about pacing. Now, whether that's a fast pace or a slow pace or a medium pace, filmmaking, when it's all edited together, is all about a pace and a rhythm and keeping things flowing and not reaching those dead moments. And a crane will allow you to show something a lot longer because the shot is always changing. In Highlander, I used it a lot more because Highlander was probably much more of a fantasy and an epic, had that epic quality about it. So I think I had a crane nearly every day. I think I use it nearly every day.
There can be only one.
I think the crane, like any device, be it the Steadicam or a handheld camera, anything that's different from normal coverage, can be overused.
There's a certain amount of power associated with ordering the camera to be put on something that's lifted up in the air. I mean, you suddenly feel like, hey, am I cool? I'm really directing now.
And I was, I guess, a little more guilty of that in my rockin' when I was doing the videos. I mean, it was, the old Luma crane was whizzing around everywhere. It's okay in the music videos, but I think in features you've got to be very sort of specific and really hold back and use them at the right time, at the right moment, and then you'll get the desired emotional effect.
It was probably the simple desire to reveal the sheer scale of their film sets that led early filmmakers like D.W. Griffith to devise the first primitive ways of getting their cameras up into the air.
I guess the one historically we've all heard about is Billy Bitzer doing D.W. Griffith's Intolerance in 1915. The story goes that Bitzer had constructed a tower that was moved on a track, and inside the tower he had an elevator installed so that the tower could be moved forward into the Gardens of Babylon set, and the camera was on this elevator rising up as the tower moved in. I have a feeling that shot literally came out of just wanting to explore this incredible set in a way that a fixed camera couldn't do it.
But it was in 1929 that the first, and now legendary, prototype of the modern crane was born at Universal Studios on the set of Broadway.
The crane itself was a pretty darn good feat of engineering. It was built by the Llewellyn Iron Works here, and it cost around $40,000. In those days, that's a lot of money.
The original story of Broadway was set in a small, sleazy bar. But as the set grew bigger to make full use of what was now known as the Broadway crane, the entire screenplay had to be rewritten, and the dingy bar turned into a huge nightclub.
The height is what the key of the whole thing was. Being able to go very high and go very low in one move. And most cranes at that time could not do that. As a whole, the Broadway crane played a very important part in Broadway. It was a big musical production, and it needed that.
You look at the MGM musicals and you picture Busby Berkeley and the use of that crane moving in, and later on, I mean, that existed through the MGM musicals through their entire existence. I think the work of the crane is just something that everybody noticed. It just suddenly was another way to free the camera.
What have you been doing all this time?
Playing with a jigsaw puzzle?
If you could have found out what that rosebud meant, I bet that would have explained everything.
No, I don't think so. No. Mr. Kane was a man who got everything he wanted and then lost it. Maybe Rosebud was something he couldn't get or something he lost.
It's probably Orson Welles who's provided most of the textbook examples of how best to use a crane.
In Citizen Kane, Welles developed this style. It's kind of Gothic dramatic. The camera mobility is absolutely essential. I see Welles as a kind of an actor who had occasionally very big oratorical kind of big flat, and that's what he would do with a camera. He would move it, you know. He would move that thing. But it was also a sense of his mastery as an artist. I mean, he really was a great director, and he still is influencing everybody.
Throw that junk.
My favorite crane shot, which is the opening shot of Touch of Evil, directed by Orson Welles, which starts on a close-up of a bomb being put into a trunk and ends up following this car through an entire neighborhood and revealing where you are, revealing all your main characters.
Here comes Touch of Evil, and it opens up. I mean, he makes an announcement that you're about to see a different kind of film. It's an incredible piece of choreography, and all this going on runs for many, many minutes.
It's a shot that achieves everything a good crane shot does. It changes perspective, it's there for a reason. It gives the audience lots of information that you couldn't get without hundreds of setups about the relationship between the car and the town and the border. And the thing that's so risky about it, which is why I would never do it or have the guts to do it, is there's no way to get out of the shot.
Mike, do you realize this is the very first time we've been together in my country?
Do you realize I haven't kissed you in over an hour?
Okay, Steve, are you ready?
Okay, ready.
And action!
Very slowly.
A lot of us grew up on old Hollywood movies. We loved them. And whereas the 60s and 70s, a lot of that was a rebellion against old Hollywood techniques like dolly shots, crane shots. I think that now in the 80s and 90s, you see the other way. It's going back to old Hollywood.
Did we go down too early or something?
What happened is we got ahead of him too far here.
We sort of lost him a little too much.
Yes.
Yeah, we've corrected that?
We have corrected that.
We've corrected that.
The beginning looks...
Oh, doctor, I'm having this problem.
Problem, eh? Well, maybe we should examine the situation.
All right, last shot. Pull the camera back nice and slow.
We're going too fast. We're going to hit the wall. Oh, jeez. Now what are we going to do?
Never mind. Keep pulling back. Maybe nobody will notice.
You can see the result of Stephen Burum's craftsmanship when The Shadow opens later this year, while Addams Family Values is still cheerfully subverting audiences all over the country.